Today, August 25, 2025, we're looking at the role of parents supporting children's digital learning. I have fascinating ladies in the studio who have worked in the area to share some insights with us. Edtech Monday is an initiative of the MasterCard Foundation's Regional Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning and part of the foundation strategy to find solutions to Africa's youth employment by closing the gap in access to quality education and advancing the integration of technology in education policies and practices across Africa. Edtech Mondays builds on the foundation's Young Africa Work strategy in Ghana with a vision that by 2030, the country will be a continental demonstration of young people, especially women, harnessing opportunities to shape the future of work and to create an inclusive economy with enhanced resilience for the most vulnerable. So MasterCard Foundation has partnered with MEST Africa to bring you EdTech Monday, which comes your way on the last Monday of every month. Catch the show live here. It's on Facebook as well, City 97.3 FM or MEST Africa. Joining us in the studio for today's EdTech Monday discussions, I have Flossie Azu. She's the head of school, Safari International School. And then I have Hannah Amwa. She's a child and youth development advocate and a long lost friend, Jigbodi Akosia Agbanyo. She's a social policy analyst, child protection advocate. Ladies, you're welcome. Good to have you all.
Thank
Oh,
you.
this energy is like the energy. Ladies, you're welcome. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So let me start with you, Flossie Azu, right?
Yes.
You're the head of school for Safari International School. You're a big woman. What does it mean to be a head of Safari International School? And who is Safari International School?
So Safari International School is one of the best international schools in Accra right now, if I do say so myself.
Okay.
So we're an accredited Cambridge International School,
Okay.
and we're now in our that's our primary years program IB candidacy,
Okay.
right? I don't know, what should I say about Safari International School? Kids love it there. Our model focuses on edutainment, so making sure that the education comes alive to the students,
Okay.
right? So we have our students love coming to school, they enjoy being at school, and they take charge. They're agents in their learning, right? So we have a student-centered approach, very, very hands-on approach to education. I myself, my background is in education from inside the classroom up until the policy level. Right? So I've had experience in early childhood education, in special education, and then also in education policy. So running programs with partners like Varkey Foundation, and running programs and events like in the national space.
So you've been in education space through and through, right from beginning all the way till now, and you have lots of experience. You'll be unpacking and bringing your knowledge to bear on the conversation, the role of parents supporting the children's digital learning. We are happy to have you. So let me turn my attention to Hannah Amoa. Hannah is very calm, collected this morning. Are you always this cool? You're a child and youth development advocate dealing with children there. You can't be cool like that. Oh, tell me about yourself, Hannah. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Caleb. Thank you, MasterCard Foundation and MEST Africa, for having us this morning. I'm Hannah Amwa, a young lady who is enthusiastic and has a passionate outlook to life. I believe in hard work and social work. So I started with youth and child advocacy when I was very young.
Okay.
Yes, so I noticed there were young
Go on.
I noticed there were young people in my community who needed mentorship, who needed guidance.
Right.
And I realized some parents were ready to assist their kids in this regard. And I took it upon myself to assist these young ones by organizing seminars and conferences for them for free.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have worked on self-development for the kids. I sometimes organize conferences. You know, sometimes you have to look at your own circle. If you don't have so much, your network is your worth, right? Yes. So since I have friends who are in the medical field, sometimes I invite them over to talk to the kids on sensitive matters. Yes. So I've been running this for the past 10 years.
Wow.
I have a background in accounting and IT from the Pentecost University.
Wow.
I've had short courses with the HR Certification Center. Yeah, so they say it's never too late to start life.
Right.
Yeah, I'm currently trying to switch to the mainstream HR,
Okay.
and I think so far it has been great.
Nice.
Thank
So,
you.
from your accounting and IT background, you've shifted into mentorship and guidance for children in schools using your network to expose the kids to career counseling and also dealing with the kids at their level of needs, right?
Yes.
Very exciting. Good to have you. So, Jigbodi Akosia Agbanyo. We met, well, where did we meet? This was before university, right? Perhaps,
Yeah.
right? It's been a long time. So, what have you been up to? Social policy analyst, child protection advocate. Tell me more about what you do now.
Yeah, good morning to all your listeners,
Mm.
and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. My name is Jibodi Akosi Agbenyo, as rightly mentioned. I have over a decade experience working with children, young people, and women. My interest areas as a social policy analyst are on child protection, youth empowerment, and gender equality. And in those spaces, I've worked with diverse international organizations advising on youth inclusion policies, as well as researching and evaluating certain governmental policies and how it relates with the average Ghanaian.
Mm.
I've also trained caregivers on trauma-informed care
Wow.
and diverse child protection initiative that provide support to different categories of people, including survivors of child trafficking.
Right.
I've also trained people on gender-based violence
Wow.
in different circles. Yeah, so I have an academic background in sociology and social work and
Right.
also in law.
Right.
I'm currently in the Ghana School of Law,
Right.
pursuing my professional education to get
Wonderful.
called to the bar. Yeah,
Amazing. So
thank you.
all of you have over a decade experience working with kids, and that's something to be proud of. So let's unpack today's conversation. We're dealing with kids. Me, I love kids. I try to spend a lot of time with my nephews, and a lot of times I step out and kids just run to me, and I wonder what they see or what they know. But they tend to kind of warm up to you when they see you. But I also wonder how parents do it because the kids sometimes it's so difficult asking them to sit down, and at times the best time to get their attention or get them to be off your back and stop creating scenes is when you give them the tablets, by which time they give you some peace. But it's also happening that within that process, the risk could be a lot whilst the learning opportunities to are many. So you are running a school, Safari International School. What's the role of parents in Ghana's digital education landscape, and why is their involvement crucial for the children's success?
Okay. Hi. Thank you. So the
First.
first thing, yes, this is Flossie. The first thing I'm going to say about that is when it comes to educating children, right? It's a whole child approach. So it's not just about books and in the classroom. It's not just about teachers standing in front of students, but it's a proper partnership between home, school, and community,
Mm.
right? So parents are not adversaries, parents are partners. So every school has to recognize that parents are partners, and parents also have to recognize that in choosing the appropriate school for your child. If you do have that choice, you have to understand that you are entering into a long-term partnership with the school,
Mhm.
which which would work if there's a basis of trust,
Mm.
right? So you have to trust that you've made the right choice based on the information that you had at the
Okay.
point that you were making the decision to place your child in the school.
Okay. Hold your thought for a
Recording
minute.
in
Come
progress.
to Jigodi also to find out, is it the case that the parents are, leaving everything to the schools and the digital space, and they are not playing an active role, for which we are trying to spotlight the role of parents in supporting children's digital learning?
Yeah, that's actually true. There's a recent study by the Ghana Internet Service Foundation, if I remember correctly, and it says that there's only about 18% of parents who are actively involved in their children's digital learning journey,
Hmm.
which means that generally most parents leave every aspect of their education, not just the digital learning aspect, to school
Hmm.
because they compartmentalize the children's lives so much that there's an assumption that when they go to school, they learn what they need to learn in school and then it ends there. However, all these areas of the child's life overlap, from their education to their moral judgment to family values. All these things overlap, and parents need to be more present and observe and interact with their children more. It's difficult because of how, I would like to say, capitalism has stolen a lot of parents from their children, because money needs to be made. If you can afford fees at Safari, you need to make the money.
Shots fired. Pay for quality. You pay for quality.
Exactly. But
Which means that a lot of time is taken away from the kids, right?
exactly. But then there should be the same way parents are able to draw up schedules on how their day should go. There should be an intentional time allocation for their children, even if it's at the end of the day, and having a conversation surrounding how their day went, what they learned in school, and how you can support in that regard. That is also being present in a child's life, and research has also shown that that is how children develop better and also produce better academic results, because of the idea that once the different compartments of the children's life are put in one beautiful holistic approach, then parents, teachers, and different state actors or stakeholders inherently provide that seasoned um, seasoned engagement that the child needs to be able to develop
So,
fully.
Jibodi, basically, you're saying less than 20% of parents spend time with their kids, helping them with their digital learning experience and generally their holistic experience, because they assume that once I am breaking my back to pay the fees to put you in good schools, then the school should take care of everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask,
Yes.
do we know that that is the reason? Because we also have to look at what the structure is like. I'll give an example of Accra. Most people live at least a 45-minute commute from their job.
That's true.
Right. So you're spending over an hour each day, depending on what traffic is looking like and depending on whether it's Christmas season or not. Right. Getting to work and getting back from work. Right. The times that schools open and the times that parents have to report to work, sometimes they clash. So you have to wake your kids up super early, get them dressed, and make sure that by the time you get to work, some Procho driver has probably scraped your car, or some Bukata driver has done some foolishness on the road. Right. So you're already stressed by the time you start your day at work. And then you come home and then, wait, what?
You probably came from work with work to home.
Yeah. And caring for a child is not an easy task, as you mentioned. Children have a lot of needs, especially the younger ones. And let's not even start talking about children who have complex medical or learning needs.
Special need.
Right.
My goodness.
So that it's a huge toll that
it's a huge mix.
Yes.
And let me get Hannah to break it down for us, right? Hannah, what are the primary challenges that parents are facing when their children have digital tools in particular, such as online safety or access issues? So let's appreciate the challenges of parents with digital and access.
Okay, thank you so much, Caleb. So I don't know how many of us grew up in homes where your career ends as a child when you touch your father's television or radio without permission. Like it's so bad. And then, but these days, before you even buy the phone, the kids would
They
have
will tell you what to buy.
right. They would set your own password for you, download YouTube. The next moment, they have downloaded about 3 games on the phone for you. So sometimes it's a bit of challenge for parents. And I would say first and foremost, monitoring online safety. These days there's a lot of cyber security threats on the internet, cyberbullying, yes. So I think recently there was a program out there for young children. And when you go through the comment section, you see people saying this child is ugly, this is this, this is this. That's a whole lot of drama for the kids out there. And then sometimes if the parents are not able to help or control the child, it's the child loses his or her self-image because of cyberbullying. And also, I think sometimes the screen time for the kids is too much. Yes, it's too much of an issue for parents. You would notice when we were out there, the man was like, you take the tablets from them and then they'll be sleeping, and in their imagination, they are playing games.
Really?
Yes, it's so
So they are
dangerous.
talking like the characters they are watching, and
Yes.
even when they sleep, they are imagining, engaging the games they are playing.
Talking in their sleep. Yeah. So I had this kid in
Yes.
my hood who was always on the phone.
Mm.
And it got to a point he had an eye issue.
Wow.
Yeah, he was blinking more than necessary. His eyes were always teary, and it's drained him mentally as well. So at a point, because the parents didn't notice that, at a point when they realized his sight was going bad, that was when they had to take away the phone or the tablet from him.
Mm.
And it's a big issue out
And
there.
I guess for some of the parents too, some of them have a generational gap thing going on where not many are so digitally literate.
Yes.
And so trying to put in controls that will protect the safety of the kids online becomes a challenge. Any of you wants to have a
Yeah,
bit
I
on that?
think that one of the things we need to understand that you don't need to be digitally literate to be able to control your child's
That's it.
habits, right? It's
Okay.
because we isolate the conversation surrounding digital exposure with other aspects of the child's life.
Okay.
And so your child needs to play, and you have a big compound and you don't allow your child to go outside and play.
Yeah.
Play with their siblings at home, or even go to a park, go swim, other avenues are available for the child to let off certain energy. We feel like the easy path is just hand over a
The
gadget
gadgets
to the
to the
child,
kids.
and we don't define what the clear rules are. So if you're giving a child a gadget, you need to let them know that you have this for an hour, and after an hour, we are
Your
going
screen time is done.
it's done.
And you're only having screen time on the weekends.
Exactly.
Right.
We don't have to leave children with digital gadgets, especially with internet, without supervision. Because if you don't limit the time they are exposed to some of these digital exposure in terms of what is going on online, they become addicted to it.
That's true.
And this also brings me back to the idea that in certain states, you find out that the states put in measures to ensure that there's some safeguards put in place. There's like proper design code for children exposure to digital platforms. And so sometimes you scroll out to a point and then the app doesn't respond anymore because
Right.
they
You've
don't
exceeded your
exceeded it.
screen time.
And that is something that the state needs to come in, because if those things are not put in place and hold big tech accountable in ensuring that children are safe online, we'll have those consistent attitude of children being glued to their gadgets. I think recently there was a US, in the US, there's a woman who's suing an AI company, yeah, for this suicidal her child committed suicide basically because he had self-harm tendencies and was communicating with the AI, and the AI kept confirming the things that the child was saying.
Wow.
And eventually like killed himself as a result of that, which is very sad. But there's also an ethical implication that these big tech companies need to take into consideration, especially when children are having access to such platforms. So yeah, it takes the parents putting in ground rules, and it also takes the state ensuring that there are safeguards put in place to protect
Because you've been doing research into policies and finding out how efficacious they are, you've jumped into the policy sites already, and that's completely okay. I like it. I like it. I like. Yes,
To
Hannah.
chip in something,
Please do.
Jibody, genuinely, some parents are illiterate when it comes
That's
to.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
they don't know, and they don't know what's happening on the phone.
That's what I'm saying.
Don't even know that the children have YouTube. They don't know what the game is about. They don't know what TikTok is about. They don't know anything. So sometimes, in most of the local homes, let's say the rural areas, sometimes it's just the daddy who has a smartphone. And even with that, when he comes home after work, that is when the child gets access to the phone.
Yeah.
But these days, it's like because maybe the dad will be tired, be asleep, the child will go to the phone. Okay, my one child was telling me that she was told in school to search for something. She didn't know what it was. So she had to wait for her daddy to come back from, and even it wasn't an assignment from a teacher, one of her colleague.
It was a social, like
Yes,
social
so
interaction with peers.
and search for XXX or something like that. And then she waited for the daddy to close from work. She had to go to her room And then she took the phone, and then she was going through. When she came, she said, "Madam, this is what I found, and it's so dangerous." Like, yes, but so they are exposed to these things all the time, and then sometimes the parents also are not aware of what the children.
The point I was trying to make is that even if you don't know what's happening on your child's device, you need to put in measures, including engaging people who may have knowledge. So if my mom doesn't know how to run a smartphone, and for some reason at a very young age I have a smartphone, I think that she would have a responsibility to even engage my older siblings who have some technological background to guide her on what exactly I'm exposed to,
Right.
or reach out to the teacher in school and say, my child has been doing ABCD. Could you confirm if this is appropriate for the child?
Right.
Or speak to people in the neighborhood who may have that. But we don't leave it as I am not digitally literate and so it ends there. And also putting ground rule does not require digital literacy to put ground rules.
Right.
So if you
It just requires being committed, being firm, and being interested in what the kids are consuming, right?
Yes, and if
Okay.
ask
But it
them
also-
questions.
Yeah.
So it
Yes,
requires you to know that you can put ground rules and to understand what ground rules are necessary,
Right.
to understand what ground rules are right for what child.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's where we can start. Right. Policy comes from top down, but we also need grassroots up.
Right.
Right. So communities, right, and community leaders also have to engage. Right. So schools, religious groups, they have to engage, because a parent might not even know or understand what it means to put ground rules, or understand that there's something called time limit on devices. A parent might not even know that the child is taking the phone when they go to sleep, right? They might not know what kind of apps they have access to. They might not understand things like, I don't know, like the kind of material, right, that are appropriate for certain ages, right? They might not even understand that the research says that screen time is not appropriate for children under 3, for example. They don't understand what the implications of this are, and they understand that the brain chemistry of different learners means that screens might not be appropriate to them for a certain time, right? So I think that's something that we also have to make sure that we are taking into consideration. Policy is great, but what does policy enforcement look like? Are we empowering people to be able to make the right decisions? Number one. And I heard you speak about parks and taking them to others. Which park? Where are you taking your kids? So where? Like exactly where
right?
are we taking our kids?
I
What kind of
grew up.
spaces do
I
kids
grew up
have?
in a slum in Ashaiman, right? We didn't have a fancy park that you could go to, but there's literally an open space where children just hang around and play, and we play with each other in different compounds, right? So when I talk about park, I'm not talking about the fancy green park that you find.
In fact, that is also very important.
Yes,
It's important to have these green parks, and so let's use our conversation and the platform to insist that in policy conversations we make space for green parks, because it's important for the cognitive development of our kids.
Thank you for highlighting that.
Yes.
Sutherland Park is a misery now.
My God, let's not even.
So, like, if we go to have that conversation, we are going to spend the whole day here. But I'm saying that we can use what we have to engage the children aside. So, if I have a 30-minute screen time and my time is off, go play with your siblings, play with a toy. Just be outside the compound and play with other children in the neighborhood.
Yes.
Because those engagement, playing football with your friends, playing Ludo and all those things, those are the things
burning calories.
Yes, but
not just burning calories, but also getting stitiches and hormones, right? You have to make jollof tonight. This is not a 5-minute meal.
I recall we spoke to a pediatrician who told us the impact this excessive screen time is having on the kids lately, such that at the age where they're supposed to be talking, they're unable to talk. At ages where they're supposed to develop social cognitive skills, they are unable to mingle with their colleagues, because what they have been exposed to, what they are used to, has always been on digital platforms. And now they talk like, even eventually when they start talking, they sound like cartoon characters and all of that. This morning during the tech and social media trends, we learned something about brain rot. where the algorithms on some particular so here's the thing, algorithms on some particular social media platforms keep showing content that is so addictive to the kids that they cannot do without the digital platforms. They're always glued to it. And here we are learning that brain rot simply refers to negative cognitive effects of consuming low quality, trivial online content, leading to decreased attention spans and critical thinking skills. So where you talk about parents being interested matters, but and then policy also comes into play, because now you have gadgets you've given to your kids and they are so addicted to this algorithm that's producing content that they are so enamored with or glued to. And you, as a parent, you also need some time because you're tired from work. You still brought a lot of work. You have targets to meet and all of that. So, Flossie, how do collaborations between schools, communities, and tech providers help parents build confidence in supporting, digital education?
All right. So the first thing that partnerships do provide is build trust,
Yeah.
right? So when schools partner with parents,
Mm.
right, parents engagement can give us an avenue
Yeah.
to start some of these conversations that I've been talking about that are necessary for parents to
Mm.
have. We can share research, right? We can share research on what is beneficial to the kid, right? We can bring in resource people. We can bring in the expertise that parents might not necessarily have the access to without us.
Mm.
Now, I also want us to not leave out, and I think we've been kind of like speaking in this circle of very middle class lens, right? Where we're thinking, number one, that parents are paying for school. Not all parents are paying for school. Parents might not necessarily have that choice. Parents might be going to the community school that is available to them. Parents might also not be the source of some of these digital devices, right? We live in a digital world. Children are exposed to things outside of the home,
Yeah.
right? So even going to a park doesn't necessarily mean that your child will not be exposed to a digital device,
True.
right? And then engaging people like big tech, like my friend just said, telecommunications institutions can do two things, right? Engage them in the appropriate use of some of these tech devices, creating workshops online that are accessible to parents, very low barriers to entry, giving us maybe more economical data packages for parents who might have some barriers to entry into the tech space. And then also creating child safe devices and child safe precautions, right? For when children are using, because you have to understand that some of these social media platforms and some of these platforms, it's pay per clicks, right? So they are benefiting from children being addicted to their platforms.
The more addicted they are, the more they make their money.
Exactly. So they're incentivized to kind of like create the brain rot.
Yeah.
Right. And this is something that maybe parents might not know. Oh, wow, this device really calms them down.
Yeah.
What they don't know is that they're not actually calming them down. They're
Yeah.
giving them dopamine hits, and which is causing dopamine addiction. And what happens when you withdraw the devices, then we have more tantruming.
Wow.
Then we have what you were describing,
Yeah.
where they're simulating the digital experience
Yeah.
even in their sleep. Right. So that's
So this is Edtech Mondays on 97.3 City FM. This is the City Breakfast Show. We are discussing the role of parents supporting children's digital learning. If you're a parent, you're a caregiver, or you're a guardian, this is a conversation for you and I, especially, whatever role you play, we all interact with kids. So yeah, it's an important conversation. Share your experiences with us. If you have any questions too, we're happy to take them. 0549 986 996. I have a fantastic array of ladies who are providing insights from their decades of experience working in advocacy and policy, as well as grounds on engagement with kids. My guest this morning, Hannah Amwa, Child and Youth Development Advocate. Flossie Azu is the head of school, Safari International School, and Jigbodi Akosia Agbenyo. She's a policy analyst and child protection advocate. So let's talk about lessons from successful parental involvement programs in other countries that we can adapt for our context, right? Hannah, throughout your work, what are some of the parental involvement programs you have seen around the globe that we can adapt to our own context?
Okay, thank you so much, Caleb. And so During my research, I found out Rwanda has tech hubs
Right.
for parents and their children.
Mm.
And in Ghana or Accra, I think ALX has tech hubs around. Yeah, so with this, I believe they can also have hubs where parents and their children could have access to various digital tools to assist with learning and then development. Yeah. So I think ALX, this is to you, please. Especially in the rural areas where we don't have access to these digital tools.
Right.
Yeah, we plead with you to help us set up digital hubs for the parents and then the teachers.
That's a good one.
Yes, and in Kenya there is this thing called Parents in ICT.
Parents in ICT.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So here, like we mostly do in our basic schools, we invite our parents over to check what their children are doing. I remember when I was in basic school, my dad would come go through my books. He has to know what I'm studying, how I'm performing, yeah, and all that. And sometimes when he sees that you made a mistake here, he asks, "What happened? What is it? Do you need help? Do you need classes?" Yes. So in Kenya, parents come to the schools to see the digital tools their children use in order to also abreast themselves with the tools that are available to the children. Yeah, and in the US and the UK, they have the Tech Nights where equally parents are asked to come over. So mostly they use the Google Classrooms, the Zoom, yes. So they project these things and then they run it through with the parents for the parents to know what exactly the children are using. In some instances, some of these apps can be downloaded on the phones and tablets, so they are encouraged to download them on their phones and tablets to assist the kids in their learning process. As Flossie said, learning is not only done in school. Yes, it's the schools and then the teachers would have to liaise to be able to provide the best education for their students.
That's exciting. So you've given us examples from Kigali, Kenya, UK, and yes, so Rwanda, Kenya, and then the UK Tech Nights. So what I see in all of these is that there's an opportunity for parents to be present.
Yes.
The presence of parents is amplified in this particular parent involvement programs that you lay out for us. And I'm sure that, Flossie, there is some opportunity like that in your school where parents get to participate actively in the digital uptake of their kids, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
We use
That's
digital tools all the time to engage parents.
Fantastic. So how can we ensure that parents in rural, Jibodi, I'm coming to you now, right? And focusing on parents in rural or low income areas, how do we ensure they are equipped to participate in their children's digital learning journey?
Yeah, so I found out that that's actually a module that's being run called the PLUS project.
The PLUS project.
Parental learning for uninterrupted schooling. And this was born out of the COVID-19 crisis and how schools had to close. It's by the Commonwealth of Learning, and it's been implemented in the northern parts of the country. Apparently, they've engaged over 7,000 students and close to 3,000 parents. What the PLUS project does is that it's focused on low income, hard to reach communities where they don't have access to digital literacy, or the literacy rates of the students in those schools are even very low. So what they do is that they engage community leaders, community members, as well as the parents, and then train these parents on how they can support their children in their digital learning. And so if such a project is running, apparently it's been running for 3 years now, and it's ongoing.
The PLUS project.
Exactly. Wow. You can look it up online and see it. I think it's a commendable project that can be expanded into other areas in Ghana, where when, just like Flossie mentioned earlier on, some parents just don't know how to handle issues of digital literacy or digital learning. And I think that's what the Edtech project inherently is also doing to ensure that people are well aware of what they need to do. And so such projects should be expanded. I think it should move from private sector, because currently it's an NGO that's running it in collaboration with the Commonwealth of Learning.
Wow.
The states, they partner with state institution, but this is something that should be led by the state so that it can ensure wider accessibility, because funding also comes in, right? We can't have the conversation surrounding parents in rural communities engaging in digital learning if we don't invest heavily in access.
Right.
Because until they have access, and the children even have access to these digital tools, and they are not drawing the keyboard on a table, on the floor,
and
in these rural
mouse on
Microsoft on the board.
exactly. So then this conversation should even happen, because then they don't even have the digital tools. So access should come based on investments. And we've had too many conversations. There are too many policies in Ghana on how we want to advance ICT.
But you want to see more action.
Exactly.
More money pumped into the sector.
Yes, because that level of commitment is what produces the result. And private sector NGOs cannot do it all. So let's move past the conversation and so many documents that we have provide heavy investment in those areas, so that when we have conversations surrounding rural communities and parents supporting their children, it would be because they actually even have access in the first place.
In the past, I've seen the former minister responsible for the sector roll out the girls in ICT, and it's refreshing to know the current minister responsible for the communication sector is also continuing that. So we want to see more of such in a coordinated manner, in a massive, there must be massive investment into that area. That's a good one there. So Flossie, let's talk about strategies.
Okay.
Parents using strategy to balance screen time, promoting digital literacy while making learning fun and interactive. And I'm also concerned that we don't lose touch with reading our physical books because we are becoming digital natives, migrating entirely to digital.
So
strategies for parents.
Okay. So first of all, it's a tool, right?
Yeah.
And like a tool, it can become a weapon. Right? So a
Mm.
tool that is not appropriately used can become a weapon. So we have to make sure that we're utilizing the tool appropriately, right? So we're understanding what its limitations are, and I'm also understanding what its negative effects are, right? So if we share that, if we know that, if we're putting up some legislation around that, right? We're ensuring that parents understand how to utilize these things, these tools appropriately. That will be way better for us. That's number one.
Right.
Number two, realizing that not all the tools are appropriate for all the children, right? So digital tools, AI, all these things that we have at our disposal now are excellent for inclusive practices and bringing different types of people in. For example, ChatGPT. Did you know that ChatGPT understands tree? It can respond to you in tree.
It does?
It does, and it understands some Ga as well.
ChatGPT or treaty. Very small coming.
Well, we're in Adabraka.
Yes.
This is Ghana.
Yes.
It will Bariga.
Bariga.
Right. So we have to kind of like ensure that we're using these tools appropriately, and we're kind of like activating the parts of the tool that are going to be beneficial to us and in our specific context. So that's the first thing.
Right.
The second thing is engaging the expertise that are necessary. We can't just assume that these digital natives just know how to use Excel. They just know how to use ChatGPT. They just know how to use Word, because you find that amazing graduates are coming from great universities like Ashesi or some of the other top universities.
University of Ghana.
University of Ghana.
And the rest.
With a degree in CS and
Tech people are also talking. We acknowledge you.
Tech, please. Shout out to Tech, right?
Tech.
and you'd be like, oh, okay, go ahead and do this, and then they're like, sure, and then you realize, no, that's not what I asked.
5 minutes.
That's not what I asked at all, right? So making sure that the curriculum also demonstrates exactly what the need is, right? Now that comes on two levels, right? So what exactly are we training the students to be able to do, right? We're not just teaching for knowledge acquisition. We're teaching for knowledge acquisition and application, right? So the knowledge that the students are having have to be beneficial to themselves today and to their future selves, right? Today, robots are taking our jobs. We keep hearing this, right? So teaching a child how to do something that a calculator can do really simply and giving them in-depth knowledge on that particular skill that a supercomputer can do really simply is not arming them with employable skills, right? So making sure that we're looking at that as educational institutions, as governments, institutions, and as community institutions to ensure that we're going back to the drawing board very frequently enough to make sure that the education is relevant, the tools are applied appropriately, and the knowledge is disseminated equitably.
I love it. So you're saying that we should see the digital tools as tools and also be mindful that they can be weapons if not used appropriately. And not all tools are appropriate for all kids. So as a parent, you should know your kids and know what kind of tools or digital platforms are good for them. And then activate the parts of those tools that optimizes their talents and their outlook. And then we should teach for application also. This involves a lot of presence and deliberate action from the parents, and I love it. Thank you for sharing those thoughts with us. Now we're going to jump onto the dashboard and hear some extra voices. This is a Vox Pop opinion from a mixed bag of people. So let's hear what others are saying about this.
Is digital. So there's the need for the parent to actually provide resources for their children to be able to make them aware or to give them the necessary training so that they'll become equipped in future. My confidence level is 100% because I'm a person that thrives on learning. So I do a lot of research and I look for a lot of digital things to help me to better execute my role as a parent. One of the challenges that I faced in supporting my child's learning has got to do with the cost of the digital learning materials. And so even with the schools that have digital resources end up billing parents extra. And so you have fees go up on that level. The training that a parent will need all depends on the tool that is being used. So whoever buys the tool would have to provide a training for the parents, either at PTA meeting or online training, so that they prepare the parents ahead of time, because parents are very busy people.
I think parents have a huge role to play when it comes to digital learning, especially with where the world is turning into. Everything now we know is digital, gone were the days when we used to play in the sun and other stuff. The children themselves, they are very curious. So if you don't guide them on how to use the tools, they may be exposed to things that you don't want them to know. Thereby, I'm very confident that, okay, when it comes to digital tool, there is a regulation when to pick your tools to use, when to access them, and when to put them down. Most of these children, especially my kids, the younger one feels like, okay, since it's my equipment, I've exposed him to it once, it belongs to him. We have to set boundaries. Okay, I give it to you to use for a time. Yours is there. If you don't like yours, there are strict measures to it. Most of the kids come from different backgrounds, and they tend to be exposed to a lot of things. Other kids may not have the privilege to do that. Thereby, during PTA meetings and other stuff, the teachers of the various pupils can at least hold private meetings with the parents to know, okay, what are the kids doing and how can we help, and what you can also help when it comes to the kid when they come home. The most important thing is how to manage or mitigate what they watch and the exposure.
Parents need to be present round the clock every time the child is exposed to any form of digital tool or device, because these children can be sneaky. To rate my confidence level in helping my child learn digital tools, I would give myself a 10 over 10. Children are very sneaky. They can quickly go where you don't want them to go. Like some other social apps. You want them to be on, say, YouTube Kids, and even that, learn or watch a particular educational video, and next time they're on TikTok or wherever else you don't want them to be. That's one of the main challenges. Generally, the practice has been the parents being mostly blind to what or the literal academic activities is going to be like. I think that if we are to be involved, we'll be able to let them know which ones our children even are already familiar with, and then we can make in swaps here and there to avoid digital exhaustion. Talking about resources and training to help parents, I think if we get a guide, like jurisdiction approved guide or catalog, our children's digital footprints are guided, they are streamlined. What we want our kids to watch would also depend largely on what our beliefs are and what or where we want them to go to and get to. I think something like that would definitely help us to be able to guide or help our wards on their digital learning journey.
Using a device, who has that time? I sure don't, right? And I have the luxury of my own car. So imagine someone who has to get up early enough to go stand in a line for a trotro. You do not have that luxury of always being present when your child is engaging in digital tools. So the monetary aspect, the time aspect as well, but then also understanding that you don't know what they're doing, right? You might still be there and still not know what's going on.
Even for the digitally literate parents, they still can do things that you are not sure of.
Yes. And they're fast. Their brains are very, very plastic, right? Because they're at that age where they're still forming neurons, that the archetypes are still working in their head. So they're able to kind of like learn very quickly. And the thing about human nature is we learn quicker than we unlearn. So when you learn the wrong thing,
it takes a long time to unlearn.
Exactly.
Wow. Now for parents, I want to aggregate this, right? For parents who have teens, preteens, toddlers, and teenagers in particular, and the use of these digital tools. How do I, if I have someone 3 or less, someone between 3 to 5, teens and teenagers, adolescents, and all, using digital platforms, how do we go about them?
Okay, so first of all, I did mention in the beginning that not all tools are appropriate for all ages or all people.
That's
right?
correct.
So we have to take that into consideration, right? So what does the brain chemistry do? This is a child who is susceptible to sometimes like some behavior issues. This is a child who's having some challenges, right? That they might need to utilize the tool, right? So that we have to be very cognizant of that in the first place. Now, if we're talking mainstream, right, we have to understand what the research says. What does the research say? The research says that anyone below 3, digital tools like screens, right, are not very beneficial to them.
So 3 to 0.
Yes. 0 to 0. Yes.
3 to 0, 0 digital.
0. Right. Hey. Yes. So this is not humanly possible. Let's be real.
That's more than terrorism. They will terrorize your life.
Right. But like you're saying, that's when speech is developing.
Yeah.
That's when social interaction is developing.
Right.
Right. That's when you
psychomotor.
Like that's when you have to model to them. Right. So it's more important for you to like speak to them. It's more important for them to see social interactions. Right. And to see more pro-social behavior than just staring at the screen. Now, obviously, this is not possible. I'm not a crazy person.
Thank you for admitting this.
You have a master's degree.
Some parents don't feel bad about themselves.
I understand that it's
but the challenge remains.
Yeah, it's not possible, right? So things like video conversations. So something like a FaceTime call, right? A video call where the child can see facial expression, can see the eye movements, can see kind of like how some of these interactions go, where you can like kind of like give a little bit of eye contact, right? That is way more beneficial than, shows or like just games and stuff like that, even though those might be a little bit more engaging.
Okay.
Right. So then above 3, between like 3 and 6, right? It should be limited to about 20 to 30 minutes at a go, right? And not more than 2 to 3 sessions in a day.
Okay.
Right. So that's up to about an hour and a half, right, per day, right, maximum. Once again, this is case dependent, right? So if you have a child, for example, who is using text-to-speech software or who's using the software to communicate, that might be different, right? And then limiting, once again, the kind of content that you're having. So slow content. So content that is not very, very noisy, right? A lot of sounds, a lot of colors that is very, very fast paced. So the screen changes very rapidly, right? Like a lot of things that are shooting, a lot of like things that are happening at the same time, right? Because once again, it's affecting the brain and the brain development, right?
There's a lot that we could unpack. Time has limited things, but there's so much too that we have learned, and I really appreciate this. So, in wrapping up, let's talk long-term vision that we should be adopting as a country to strengthen the partnership between parents and educators in digital learning. Let me start with you, Jigbodi.
I think the first thing would be a more intentional use of the Parent Teachers Association.
Okay.
There are certain schools that just use that association to just disseminate information and tell the parents come and pay fees, so vacation is up.
I said you pay for quality.
Well, this is not to say you come to Safari, they don't do that. But just like on a long-term basis, I think that schools should be more intentional about utilizing the Parent Teachers Association. Even the parents in that association should also be intentional about connecting with the teachers better so that they can have a seamless understanding of what they're learning in school and what they should be learning at home. In that regard, I also mentioned earlier on in relation to the state's playing a critical role in ensuring that the things that children are exposed to, especially because Africa is at the receiving end of technology rather than the innovative aspect of it, which means that we still don't have a lot of information about how these AIs and whatnot are being engineered, which means our state needs to play an active role in guiding or safeguarding the children through adopting big tech policies to ensure that they don't expose the children to too many things that will be detrimental to them.
So your fellow social worker colleague Abdul Karim Ibrahim says to say he's really proud of your strides. I come to you, Hannah, to give us your concluding thoughts and long-term vision.
Okay, thank you, Caleb. So for the long-term vision, like the government is pushing for STEM education, the government can equally push for parent and child education in digital learning. So like we build community libraries for people in rural and urban areas. We can equally build tech hubs in the rural and urban areas as well to assist in digital learning. And I also believe it should be equally distributed across it. So usually when libraries or these things are built, they tend to forget those in Impohowasa, tend to forget those in Wasai Kropong.
Are you from Wasai? Because I get it. So there must be inclusion.
Yes.
We have to equal access.
Yes.
That's a good one. Hannah, thank you for that. Flossie, in 30 seconds.
Okay.
Final words and
So thank you very much for this opportunity. This has been a great conversation. I agree with everything that everybody has shared, policy and also grassroots, right? It's a two-pronged approach. Additionally, we shouldn't forget that some of these tools that are being generated, they're using data. And so that's why you still have like gender disparities in some of the programs and some of the outcomes that we're seeing. And then we're also seeing some racial disparities, right, as well, in some of the outcomes that you're seeing in AI and stuff like that. So we should also be cognizant of that. So as we're training the AI, as we're deploying some of these tools, these digital tools, we have to understand what their limitations are, and we have to have a concerted effort to bridge those gaps.
So Flossie Azu is the head of school for Safari International School. Thank you. You heard Jigbodi Akosi Agbenyo, earlier social policy analyst, Hannah Amwa, child and youth development advocate. Ladies, thank you for joining us for Edtech Monday.
You're welcome.
Excellent. So my name is Caleb. That's all time will allow us for another lady joins us in the studio with the news at 10. Her name is Fafa Melody Botufe. Fafa, good morning.
Good morning, Caleb. Coming up